Barstool Sports picks up my podcast.
That'd be unreal.
Wouldn't it? Okay, well, we'll get started here if you're ready to
Sounds
go.
good. Yep.
Um, okay, our guest today is Tyler Fiddler. He worked with Fidds a couple years ago with Spring. He was one of my instructors that helped out and just kind of became buddies from there. And really probably have him to thank for this podcast. It was something like an idea I got when he gave me a call to do an interview with his Dominate Hockey. So thanks for coming on, Fitz.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So we'll start, I guess, early in your playing career. You grew up in Saskatchewan, played with the Mintos, and you played midget at 17.
Yeah.
And then went straight to the Western League after that. Like, were you a listed player or undrafted, or how did you end up in Calgary?
Yeah. I was undrafted in the Bantam draft, um, and then just kind of progressed through. Played midget double A my first year midget, um, and then made the Mintos midget triple A team as a 16-year-old. Had a really good year. Went to the Telus Cup, won the Telus Cup. At the tournament, I was named top forward. At that point, I was listed by the Calgary Hitmen. At that point, I wasn't sure whether NCAA or the WHL was kind of the right route for me. So I think it was my 17-year-old year. I was getting recruited by teams from the BCHL, and I went on a couple recruiting trips out there. And I guess the funny story is I went out there for a few days, got put up with a billet for those days, and everything was going well. And the day I was supposed to fly home, the assistant coach slept in, and I missed my flight back to Saskatchewan.
No way.
And at that point, my parents were like, well, like, I think Calgary's the spot for you. So I guess out of that, that's kind of how I ended up in the Western League. One of their scouts was from Prince Albert. My family knew him. So
Yeah.
obviously he had his opinion on the Hitmen. And I mean, the organization itself is, top of the league. And it was a great decision for me.
Yeah. So you go there, your first year you have 3 goals, and then the next year you have 30, and then your third year there you're the captain. Just kind of talk about what went into that. Like, did you ever see yourself scoring 30 goals after three? And you're like, that's a huge jump.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me was the adjustment period, going from being the guy in midget AAA to, I guess, being a third liner in the
Hmm.
WHL. And I guess not the problem, but I went to the Hitmen and we were contenders. We made it to the WHL final that year. We had two 20-year-olds that were in our top six. We had a bunch of 19-year-olds. We had 18-year-olds that were NHL draft picks. So for me, it was, a third line role, no power play. Not the ice time that I was expected, or that I was used to playing growing up. But reflecting back on those days, it kind of made me a more well-rounded player. I was a PK guy, kind of a checker, and kind of learned how to play both ends of the rink. And for me to, stay on the third line, that's kind of what was expected. And and then going into my 19-year-old year, I knew we had some graduating guys going to the American League, and knew there was some spots to fill into the top six, and went in there and earned a spot. And I got to play with Brandon Cozen for the majority of the season. And I think it was a trade deadline. I think it was over a point a game guy. And at the deadline, we ended up trading for two guys, both NHL draft picks. And I remember our coach coming into the room with me and pulling me in and going, yeah, we just traded for these guys, and obviously someone's got to get bumped off the line and off the power play. And at that point, I ended up going back to the third line and being kind of used more as a checker. And at that point, it was, I guess, a little tough to swallow, but at the same time, being the team player that I am, you kind of just roll with it. And we had a really good team, and we ended up winning the WHL championship that year and opted the Memorial Cup. So everything kind of worked out for that from there. And then being named a co-captain as a 20-year-old, we went WHL finals, lost, WHL championship, won, and then obviously you kind of take the rebuild and got to retool. So that year was tough, but I guess I gained experience being a leader, and yeah.
That's awesome. So you guys go to the Memorial Cup. Just kind of talk about that. I think that's such a rare experience that guys get, a once in a lifetime opportunity to play in that tournament. I think it's probably one of the toughest things to go to. Like, you have to win the Western League Championship and then travel, and then you got to do it all over again. I just talk about that whole experience.
Yeah, ours was in Brandon, Manitoba. Um, I guess there's no really easy way to set it up where
Hmm.
like it's a funky tournament to begin with, and you have to have a host team, and then the three winners from the other leagues across Canada. And we actually beat Brandon in the WHL playoffs in 5 games, and then we go to Brandon. We beat him in the round robin, and then I think Brandon played Moncton in the tiebreaker game, and then we met Brandon in the semifinals, and then we ended up losing to Brandon.
Oh no.
So they ended up going to the finals to face Windsor, and I think they got spanked like 9-1
Yeah,
or
I think I remember that. That was
something
like
like
they had
that.
Hall and Ellis and
Yeah, like they were stacked. They had Hall, Adam Henrique, Cassian,
right.
Fowler, Ellis, Grubauer. Like, I mean, no wonder why they
Yeah.
won it. And then, I mean, those are just guys that went on to the NHL, and then you have, I mean, probably the other half of their team going to the American League and
Yeah.
playing pro hockey somewhere. So, um, yeah, I mean, we had some good players ourselves. We had Paul Postma, Michael Stone, and Brandon Cozen, and we had some good players, but
Mhm.
obviously not to their caliber.
No. And was that their second time? Was that their first Memorial Cup or second? Because didn't they win two in a row?
Yeah, I think that was their second.
Second one, yeah. That team,
Yeah,
I remember that. I remember watching that tournament. That team was so good.
yeah, we kind of stuck with them in the round robin, and then I think it was 4-2 or 4-1, and yeah, we had some good players on our team, but I mean they were pretty elite.
Yeah, that must have been a fun experience though, just to play in that and play against guys like that.
Yeah, 100%. Even like going back to the year before that, like you played in the WHL finals against Kelowna, and they have Tyler Myers, Tyson Berry, Jamie Benn, Michael Backlund. Like, um, the Western League, they have some pretty good players, and just looking back on my time, like super grateful for the opportunity, and you get treated so well, and
Mm.
it's pretty much playing pro hockey, but
Yeah,
in at 17, 18, 19 years old.
yeah, no, that's awesome. And didn't Windsor spank them in the finals too the year before?
Um, I'm not sure. I don't remember that tournament, but
I
um,
think they did.
yeah,
Because it was Guggenberger the Kona goalie.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Windsor smoked him in the finals that year too. That's crazy. So you finish up in the Western League. Was there ever a decision that you had to make between going to school or going to play in like the East Coast or the American League?
Well, I went to Phoenix Coyotes camp in the fall after or before my 20-year-old year, and having a good 19-year-old year in the Western League, I had hopes of earning a contract, and my 20-year-old year I ended up having a high ankle sprain that kind of lingered the whole season. And um, looking back, I wish I would just kind of let it heal up and,
Hmm.
come back at 100%. But I kind of always tried pushing things and, uh, getting back into the lineup. And you kind of feel the pressure of, that contract kind of slipping away from you. And um, so at that point, there was some interest on, two-way AHL contracts. And at that point, just talking with my agent, it was kind of more the thought process is being undrafted on a two-way contract, you'd probably be sent down to the East Coast. And um, I don't know if many people know, but like the WHL scholarship is pretty good for the players, and you get tuition and books paid for, and whatever your tuition is, the team can match on scholarship. So you ended up leaving school with a degree, debt free, pretty much. And at that point too, like I was seeing people after their CIS or now youth sports careers, going to play pro and going over to Europe. So at that point, I kind of knew that was the smarter decision. And obviously, you can't play hockey forever. So
Yeah.
just to kind of have that degree in my back pocket, and um, yeah, so that was kind of the decision there.
What did you take when you went there?
I was taking business. So at the time, I committed to U of C. Um, and then I ended up transferring over to Mount Royal. At that time, Mount Royal was in the ACAC. They weren't part of the CIS. So yeah, my first year I only played 6 games. I dealt with concussions.
Hmm.
Um, so I played the first 6 games, got concussion, and then I was out till Christmas time. And at that point, that was when um, CIS schools were playing the World Junior teams at Christmas time for a exhibition game.
Right.
So that was my first game back, and I can't remember who was on Team Canada, but they went to go dump the puck in, and I like totally didn't react to the play, and the puck just smoked me right on the jaw.
Oh no.
And right then, that was concussion number 2. Um, so at that point, I'm transitioning to school um, while dealing with concussion. And at the time, I didn't really realize the impact that the concussion had on me.
Hmm.
I was irritable, I was sensitive, I just wasn't myself. Um, I didn't like going to school. I really couldn't go to school and focus for too long with the headaches and everything like that. And um, at that point, hockey was kind of like a second thought for me, and didn't really enjoy it too much. And to be honest, like I didn't really enjoy too many aspects of life at that point, because it was the headaches and the mood swings and all that was kind of all ramped up into a few months there. And um, at that point, being in school and going to U of C, going to sit into a theater of 300 kids and trying to learn
Yeah.
business, and it was a tough goal for me. And I'm a small town Saskatchewan kid, and that was kind of a big step for me to even get into that. So at the time, our education guy with the Hitmen, he encouraged us to sign up for classes with Mount Royal. So during my WHL time, I take a class per semester, and I really enjoyed Mount Royal, small class sizes. So at that point, I was like, well, things aren't going well for me. I need a change, and so I had to end up sitting out a year uh, to redshirt. And actually, during that time, me and my wife or girlfriend at the time, but wife now, packed up and we went to Europe for 2 months and just traveled around and got away from things. And um, when I got back, I had the passion again to play hockey, and I had the passion and the itch to start training again, and getting into that, and really enjoyed my time at Mount Royal. And yeah, kind of the hockey career started back on track again.
I didn't know. That's a pretty interesting story. So you take some time away to just kind of find the love again for the game and get healthy, and maybe like, would you say that 2 months was a big part in kind of your career getting back going again?
Yeah, I think you kind of just you get into the grind of wanting to be a hockey player so bad, and
Mm,
um, I was pretty successful up to that point, and all of a sudden you see your hockey career kind of stalling a little bit, and um, you see trying to re-engage in school. And I was always a school guy. I had good marks in high school, and I really enjoyed school, but to even go to class and engage into the grind, and university hockey, it's tough because you're balancing school, and then also you're racing to practice, and then you got to go back to school in the evening, and
mm,
um, it takes some adjustment to get used to what a day-to-day life is for a student athlete, and especially to be a successful one.
mm,
So yeah, it was kind of to take time away and kind of just appreciate what the game has to offer and what it's all about. And at that point, my mindset kind of changed, and I mean, I still took hockey seriously, but I was able to pack it away, I guess, when I wasn't playing hockey, and I
mm.
wasn't always thinking about hockey. And up until that point, if I had a bad game or if things weren't going well, it kind of stuck with me, and it made my mood, affected my mood. And at that point, just coming back from my redshirt year, I kind of appreciated it a little bit more. And when I was at the rink and when it was time to work and workouts, I took it seriously and I was all in on hockey. But at the same time, when I wasn't, I was able to pack it away and just focus on the social aspect of life in general, and connect with your friends, and be able to balance the two a little bit better.
That's awesome. Where'd you guys go when you went to Europe?
We did a Kentucky tour, so like we were everywhere. We were London, Italy, Budapest, Prague. We met some really good people that we still keep in contact to today, and a lot of Australians. But yeah, we were able to see all that, and I think at that point too, we kind of realized that we really liked Europe, and that was kind of a path that we were going to go down
Mm,
once the opportunity came. So I guess that was kind of the stepping stone to heading over there.
right on. And did you meet your wife in Calgary?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So then your school career kind of comes to an end there. You go to Colorado in the East Coast League. What went into that decision? Like I looked at that team and like it looked like it was just a WHL alumni team. That part of it?
Um, to be honest, like I had no expectation on what was going to happen after my university career, and all of a sudden we lost out from playoffs, and um, I get a call from our coach, and he's like, "Hey, like you got 5 or 6 teams interested in you. Like, do you want to go play in the coast?" And I'm like, "Well, like, what do I do with school? What do I do? Like, what happens?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, you take your classes online to finish the year. You come back, you get your finals, you go play in the coast, and hopefully earn a call up, or just put up some numbers so your resume is a little bit more padded."
Hmm.
Um, so I had a few teams after me, and I knew a few people on Colorado, so um, just having some familiar faces around made the decision a little bit easier. Um, go down there. Obviously, you don't make a ton, especially being a rookie in the East Coast. Um, so yeah, just kind of try getting some experience in minor pro and in the states there. And I guess a funny story is I remember going there and they're like, "Hey, like you're gonna make the rookie max." I'm like, "Okay." So rookie max at that time was, I think it was 550 per week, and I'm like, "Okay, like we got a deal." And go there, start playing some games, and I think it was maybe the second or third game after warm ups, the coach pulls me in and he goes, "Hey, Fids, you need to take a pay cut." I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Salary cap reasons. Like we need to lower." your pay. I'm like, okay, well, like, what am I making? They're like 500. I'm like, okay, like, what if I don't want to take this? They're like, well, if you don't want to take it, you're not playing tonight. I'm like, well, like, I guess, like, give me the paper. I gotta sign it. Um, so that's kind of how it worked. And there was, a few times in there after warmups, I get pulled into the office. Hey, we can give you a pay bump today. Like, here's your pay for today. I'm like, okay. Like, so it's kind of like that was like the part of the game where it's like, hey, like, this is a business, and
Yeah.
this is real. And I was contemplating going back, but I think they had I think it was like 25 or 30 games that you had to play to not be classified as a rookie the next year. Obviously, I didn't reach that amount, so at that point, I'd be going back for the rookie max, and who knows, if you're going to be taking a pay cut again or
Yeah.
what it was like. But I mean, Colorado was awesome. We flew everywhere. We our rink was sold out every game. The fans were like so passionate, and it was a great experience.
That's awesome. So then after that, you go to Europe. I know you kind of mentioned that you and your wife had kind of thought about that path before, but what was it like? Because I know in Europe, there's so many different leagues and so many different teams, and it's obviously a new world over there, and kind of a new type of hockey, different business. So what was that experience like? Just going over there to play?
I think for me, it wasn't so bad. I knew some players on the team that I signed with my first year. We had a Canadian coach,
That was in
uh,
Denmark.
Denmark, yeah,
Yeah.
and then the Danish culture is pretty similar to Canada, and all the Danish guys spoke perfect English. So for me, it was kind of the perfect transfer and transition over there. You're allowed 8 imports, so we had. I think that first year we had 7 Canadians or Americans, and then one Swedish guy, and then a bunch of the Danish guys were very welcoming. Funny story with that too is the Danish national, or I guess it was the Danish U18 team, came over to play in the Max tournament,
Oh, okay.
and we played them as the Mintos in the quarterfinals, and they beat us out. And then a couple of years ago, or a couple of years goes by, and I'm playing over there, and one of the guys comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, like, do you play in that Max tournament?" I'm like, "Yeah, like, we played like Team Denmark." They're like, "Yeah, like, I was on the team," and so it's kind
Okay.
of a small world,
That's fun.
being able to play them. But yeah, the lifestyle over there, you you're not playing as many games. The hockey's still really good, really competitive, and Uh, I think when I got over there, the Danish league was a little lopsided in terms of the top teams being the top teams and the bottom teams being the bottom teams. You look at things now, and I think they had a team go bankrupt, so I think they were at 9 teams last year. But like 8 of the teams are all on even playing grounds, and you're playing competitive hockey where I think it was the year before I got there. There was maybe 2 or 3 teams that only win 5, 6 games throughout the whole year, and you kind of know the league is going to be decided by 2 or 3 teams.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, in terms of living over there, being able to travel, the experience, getting to meet new people, like, I recommend it for everyone.
Yeah. And was it always like, did you know you were going to go to Denmark right away, or was there some decisions that you had to make between that league or other ones?
I think like the most common ones for guys coming out of U Sports or limited experience in the coast or the American League is you go to the UK, you can go to France, or you can go to Denmark. Um, you talk to people around the industry, and each of them have their own opinion on what league is best, I guess. I think you look at the UK league, and when they were when they were coming up and they were coming big, that was when all the fighters were going there, and it was
Yeah. Right.
more of a fighting league, and I think that kind of hurt their image a little bit. But you look at it now, and there's some good players there, and the fights are down and the hockey's better, and it's kind of like, I guess, almost like the East Coast of Europe in a way, with not really having too many import rules over there. But yeah, for me, it was a couple guys I played with at UFC were in Denmark. The coach was from Calgary, and I met with him. I had a coffee with him over here, and it was kind of just an easy transition for me to, hop in and know people that I knew and have a Canadian coach, and just kind of doing my research on Denmark, having people speak English and not having that big culture shock where
Mhm.
I think you might experience if you go, more Eastern Europe. And so that, yeah, it was a great experience for me.
What was like the living arrangements while you were there?
Yeah, so most of those teams give you an apartment and give you a vehicle. You don't pay for anything. You head over there, and everything's covered for you. Um, get picked up at the airport, and they drop you off at your house. And usually you can ask for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. Some teams are more flexible. For me, as I was over there more, I kind of got more pull, I guess, and teams were, I guess, offering me more incentives to come over there.
Mhm.
The first contract, you kind of just sign your contract and don't say too much. And but as you go, you kind of learn the ropes a little bit on contract negotiations, what you can get, what you can't get. Um, but yeah, I bounced around. I chased the money a little bit. Won the championship my first year, had a really good year, and then another team in Denmark came calling, bigger budget team, and um, at that point, it was a business decision for me to up and leave. I love my time in Esbjerg, and they were great to me, but I guess money talks in the hockey world. So you chase over there, and um, after my second year, that's when I kind of was like, hey, well, let's see what opens up here. Let's be a little bit greedy and see if I can get into Germany, or get into Austria, or into some of those other leagues. And I was pretty patient the whole summer, and all of a sudden, I ended up firing my agent that summer just because I wasn't happy with, um, I guess, the effort he put in to get me a deal. And
Was that it?
um,
Was he one that you got when you went over to Europe, or same guy that you'd always had?
no, so usually, from what I've heard, is kind of once you go to U Sports, your agent kind of
Yeah.
abandons you a little bit,
See you
and
later.
doesn't really see you as a profit
Yeah.
for him. So at that point, I had a bunch of agents messaging me on Facebook.
Yeah, the Facebook ones, yeah.
Yeah, and like all of them, and I was like juggling a few of them. I'm like, hey, like I was messaging back, and I'm like, hey, like, what do you got for me?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, here's our offer, and I'm like, no, like that's not enough. And then they keep on working for me, and all of a sudden, I remember the coach from Esbjerg calling me, and he's like, hey, like, who are we dealing with for you? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, we have like 3 or 4 agents calling on your behalf. And I'm like, they're like, you might want to pick one. So at that point, I ended up signing with a European one, um, who was a German Canadian, but he was coaching in the third league in Germany. So it was kind of like the agency for him was kind of more secondary income for him. So he um, wasn't really into it for,
Yeah.
I guess, well, I think he had good intentions. He was good for me initially. But yeah, once I started getting patient on the deal for my third year, I think my agent's team won the third league championship, so they were moving up to the DL2.
Mhm.
And he's like, well, if you want, you can sign with my team. We're not going to be good, and we don't have a lot of money. And I'm like, well, like, I was like, I don't know if that's like a great opportunity for me. Like, it's not really, you're not really selling me on the team.
No.
And so at that point, I switched agencies. I went with a Danish company, and they got me back into another Danish team. And I think I waited. I think it was August 2nd I signed, and August 4th I was flying out of Canada to go over there.
Yeah, 'cause you gotta go early.
So so imagine my wife, just kind of like, where are we going? I'm like, well, I was like, I don't know yet. Like, we're trying to figure this out, and um, ended up with a really good opportunity. And I guess a funny story there too is we're at the airport, and for the most part in Europe, the coaches pick the players, and then the manager or general manager just sign the contract or makes things work. We're at the airport, and I check my phone, and our coach resigns. He quits.
Oh no.
And I'm like, oh no, like, what am I getting myself into? And land in Copenhagen, and the owner picks us up, and he's like, hey, like, did you hear, like, our coach quit? And I'm like, yeah, like, I just read it about it before I flew out. And he's like, yeah, he's like he wasn't happy about some of our signings, and he was a Swedish coach, and he wanted Swedish players. And in August, we signed 3 North American guys. And so all of us go over there. We're like, well, like, obviously we're the problem. Like, we're the reason
That's
he.
awkward.
Um, but it ended up working out really well because we ended up hiring um, a Danish coach who was kind of in the minor hockey system, and he really liked us. And at that point, that was kind of his first coaching gig at that level. So he really leaned on us, and like, he played us a ton. And I remember, like, him, like, pulling us in and being like, hey, like, are you guys playing enough? Like, do you guys need more ice time? And at that point, like, we had some kind of website that tracked our minutes and tracked all the data. And like, we were playing like 22 minutes a game. And we're like, no, 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 like, we're happy, and things are good. So at that point, it was a really good fit. We ended up winning the Danish Cup and Danish Championship that year, and everything kind of worked out.
That's fun. It's such a just a different culture there, like even between coaches and players, like
Yeah,
just having conversations like that. Like I don't think you would ever have that conversation in North America.
no, it's different over there. It's different with each coach, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a little bit more laid back, I guess, and a little bit more about the experience of playing in Europe.
hmm What was it like in playing in Europe, having a Canadian coach the one year and then a European coach the next year? Was it different playing for like a North American guy versus a European guy?
Yeah, I think the big difference is training camps.
hmm
You go over there with a Canadian coach, and they kind of understand, like, hey, let's ease into this training camp. Let's not go too hard, and we'll figure it out, and we'll ramp it up as the season comes along, and um, we'll get at it that way. You have a European coach, and it's 2 days, and 3 days, and you're working out, or you're skating in the morning. You're followed by a workout, and then you're coming back in the evening for another practice. And I mean, you go over there so early, like,
Yeah.
you're there early August for Denmark and Germany, and you're not starting the season until end of September.
hmm
And so you go through 4 6 weeks of training camp and fitness testing, and yeah, you kind of have the experiences I had with the Canadian coaches. It was kind of, you had a couple days that were pretty tough, but for the most part, it was, hard practices for sure, but there was one of them. And, you'd grind for an hour and a half and have your battle practices, and you'd pack up. And at that, in August, it's still nice weather, and, you go to, like, the city square, and, sit on a patio and have a beer and, enjoy it, where, um, some other places where you're just grinding, you're almost so
Yeah.
tired to do anything. So yeah, it's definitely a different experience with the coaches.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've heard stories, like I know some guys that have played in places where like beer is $2 and it's just
Yeah,
everything's super cheap. Was it like that in Denmark too?
Denmark's really expensive.
Oh, it is.
um Yeah, the groceries and everything like that were pretty on point with Canada. But if you're going out to eat at a restaurant, you're definitely paying for it. Um, and a lot of the Danish, they like eating at like well off or like fancier establishments.
Hmm.
Um, in Esbury, we live right off, like right downtown, right where like the shopping street and where all the restaurants are. And a lot of us imports would just go to this Irish pub and you'd grab a beer for $3 or $4, and like it was dark and dingy, but there was soccer on, and the beers were cheap, and you were with your teammates, and we thought
Yeah.
that was fine. And but you'd walk up the road, and all of a sudden you'd go to a fancier place, and all of a sudden beers are $8-9, and you're kind of paying for the atmosphere, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it all depends.
Yeah. So then you played this last year. You played in Germany. It's just a little bit about transitioning out of Denmark into Germany, and then what that was like playing in the Del 2 League.
Yeah, at that point, I had 3 good years in Denmark, and um, really just wanted to, live in a new country and experience something new. And I think those two leagues are pretty interchangeable. You see a lot of guys jumping from Denmark to the Del 2 and back and forth. And I guess the big difference there is in Denmark, you're allowed 8 imports, and in the Del 2, you're allowed 4. So I guess the big adjustment there is you feel the pressure a little bit more to perform, and expectations are raised a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, the hockey was pretty similar for me. Um, the big thing for me was like we had a German coach this year who only spoke German. So like our practices, our meetings, our video meetings, like everything was in German.
Oh,
So
that's
like yeah, so sometimes you're zoning in, you're zoning out, and all of a sudden, I mean, the coach could speak English. He just spoke to the team in German. Um, but you'd be like watching video, and all of a sudden he'd start speaking English, and us imports would look at each other like one of us messed up doing something. And so that was kind of that. But yeah, we had a really tough training camp this year. It was long, it was intense, it was hard. Um, but yeah, I'd say in Germany it's more. I think the hockey is more established there. The
hmm.
culture is more established. The fans are more engaged, I guess, and they get more fans. It's a little bit more professional, I guess, in the way they run things. Um, but yeah, in terms of the hockey, it's pretty similar between both leagues.
What city was that in Germany?
We were Bad Nauheim, so we were like 20 to 30 minutes just outside of Frankfurt.
Okay. And then do you know where you're going next year?
Yeah, right now things are kind of up in the air. A lot of those European teams they're funded by sponsors. Um, I know some leagues aren't even allowed to talk contracts with players. They're kind of waiting to see what the financial budget looks like for the league and for the teams. Um, so there's a bunch of things I've heard. Some leagues might just get rid of imports and just pay their countrymen and go with that. Or I think everything in terms of like start date, financial reasons for imports, and even for getting flights over there to be a bit challenging. So right now we're kind of in wait and see mode. I'm still rehabbing an ankle injury, so I've got time, and we'll see where things go, I guess.
Mhm. Do you find like playing there, and I know it's common to play, to kind of bounce around the different teams or leagues, but in the off season, of course, comes with that a lot of uncertainty of where you're going to be the next year. Like, do you find that to be a frustrating process, or having gone through you just kind of expect it and know how to handle it now?
I think my first couple of years it was hard, just not knowing.
Hmm.
As you go along, you kind of get used to what the process is like, and um, at first it was like your agent would call you and be like, "Hey, we got teams after you," and then you get your hopes really high, and all of a sudden you call back in a week and talk to your agent, and it's like, "Well, yeah, nothing happened," and it's like, "Oh, okay, now you're riding this roller coaster to be like, okay, like now what?"
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden he'd call back and it'd be like, "Yeah, we have, these three teams are after you in this league," and be like, "Okay, like you get your hopes up again." And um, so now it's kind of just, I don't even really speak to my agent a ton, and just, let me know when you actually have something a little bit more concrete. And I just
Yeah.
go about my summer and, do my workouts and, get ready to play. And um, obviously you have the pressure with the year-to-year contracts, because if if you don't perform that year, obviously it impacts what league you're going to. It impacts how much you're making, and impacts if any team wants you. And I guess that's the same as wherever you play for the most part. Um, but I find in Europe, you kind of have to bet on yourself, and
Yeah.
um, you don't want to lock into a contract where you have a breakout year, and all of a sudden you're stuck with the team has the player option to bring you back, and you get stuck there. So, I mean, I played with Cody Kerr, and like his progress is like unbelievable. Like he played with me in Denmark, went to Norway. I think he was like playoff MVP, won a championship there, went to the SHL, which is probably top three league
Yeah.
in the world. And he had a really good year last year, and then this past season, I think he was like second in league scoring, like overall.
Really. And he's a
Uh,
demon.
D-man
Wow.
won D-man of the year, MVP, and now like there's talks that he's going to sign an NHL contract.
That's funny because I was looking at. I've always thought like that guy. I remember watching him at UFC, and like he looked
Yeah,
like an NHL player playing like
yeah,
CIS. And then when I saw looking through the elite prospects yesterday, one of your teams, and I kind of clicked to see where he had gone through and saw his numbers in Sweden, and I thought like, how's that guy? Like he's got to be getting NHL interest if
yeah,
you're putting up that type of numbers in that league as a D man. Like
yeah,
that's incredible.
yeah. Like great guy, great teammate, and
Hmm.
he's so skilled. So I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope it works out for him, because it's quite the story.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. Um, well, I guess a couple just fun questions here now to wrap up. Best city that you've played in?
Played a game in, or played in general, like played for their team.
Uh, like played for, I guess, because you've played in a lot of different places. So best city you've played for? Prince Albert.
No, no, no. I only go back there a few days a year. Um, I'd say Rungstead. It's a community probably 20 minutes outside of Copenhagen. Um, Copenhagen's an unbelievable city.
Mhm.
Um, it's right close to Malmo. You hop on the bridge and you're in Sweden, and just so much to see, so much to do. Such a cool atmosphere. Like their rush hour is with like bikes. Like no
Really?
one's driving the car. It's just like bikes. Thousands of bikes on the road, and um, it's just a really, I guess, the a really European feel city, and
Yeah.
we really liked it there.
What I guess then are the places that you've played and cities you've played in, whether you're on that team or a different team in Europe, what's the best city you've been to in Europe?
Um, we got to play Champions Hockey League. We went to Zug and we went to Helsinki. Both of them like unbelievable cities. Um, and then like in Europe, you get the national team break, so you get like a week off in November and a week off in February, and you just bugger off and go to wherever you want. And we've been to like Hamburg, Germany. We've been to Poland. We've been to Budapest. So we've got to see a lot of places. And I think my favorite is Prague in the Czech Republic.
Mhm.
Um, very very cool city.
Everyone I talk to that's been to Europe or been through Europe says same thing, Prague.
Yeah,
They love it. What did you think of Budapest when you were there?
uh, really nice. We everything's so cheap there.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, great atmosphere, great city. You're along the river, and all the architecture and all the buildings is really cool.
Yeah, it's my buddy Chris played there the last couple years and like just loved it. And they were so bad though. Like the team was awful, but like had a place down on the river and beers are $2 and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
you definitely live the dream kind of out
yeah,
there, and
that's what it
um,
sounded like.
great experience.
Yeah. Best player that you've played with? I stole this one from you.
Um, I think in junior, I play with Brandon Cozen and Martin Jones, and
Hmm.
those two guys kind of stand out. And then um, the one year in Denmark, we ended up getting Patrick Dwyer, who played like over 400 games for Carolina in the NHL. And um, I mean, we never thought we were going to be able to get him in Denmark, and it ended up he came at the November break, I believe, and yeah, he was unbelievable.
Does he coach over there now?
I think he was player coach in Belfast the year
Yeah,
after.
yeah, that's right.
I'm not sure what he's been up to lately.
Yeah. And then just before we wrap up, you want to talk about your new venture you have, Dominate Hockey?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, we're an online resource trying to help young hockey players navigate through their hockey careers, and um, for the most part, especially looking back at my hockey career, and you look at the steps you go through, and you kind of hear the cliche, well, the next level the players are bigger, stronger, faster, but you don't really understand what that means, or
Mm.
what the different aspects of transitioning to that next level be, whether it be off the ice, living with a billet, or having to cook, or how to even approach things. And even just the few interviews I've done, and the one thing that kind of stood out to me was talking with Adam Oates, and you know he didn't really understand what a, to be a junior hockey player meant, and he recommended to reach out to the returning players, and that's just something simple like
Mhm.
that if you're going to go to a new city and a new team and a new league, if you understand the routine, what time practice is, what's the workouts like, what's the schedule like, like when do you play the games, and like all that, now you can just go there, you can play hockey,
Yeah.
and now you're prepared, and now you have the best chance to succeed, versus going in there blind, and trying to learn on the fly, and like all these things are flying at you. And our goal is just to raise awareness, and um, inform hockey players what that next step looks like, or talking to skills guys like yourself, and trying to see what trends there are in the game, and what skills we should be working on. And yeah, I think it's something simple, but knowledge is power,
Hmm.
and to have that, players are spending money on personal trainers and spring camps, and they're getting prepared for their seasons. But if you're going in blind, and don't really know what to expect, it makes things tough to be successful. And so that's kind of where we're aimed at.
I think that's awesome, and I don't think there's anything like that that's out there. Like there's, like you said, tons of different skill programs and options, but nothing that really helps players prepare for just that life that, and it's a huge life change. Like go from
Yeah,
midget to, junior, or even going junior to school, or school to pro, or over
yeah,
to Europe. Like every stage, it's the life is so much different, and I think sometimes it can be really overwhelming for players if they're not prepared, and then that's obviously gonna, leak into your game, and it's gonna cause a lot of struggle and just discontent. So I think that's a great thing what you're doing. I'm excited for you, and I think it's a great resource for players, and I hope that everyone takes time to check it out.
yeah. That's what we're hoping for. I mean, I've said like hockey's given so much to me, and it's a great game, and you can experience so many great things with it. So,
Mm.
I mean, even if you're not reaching your end goals. Most hockey players is, make it to the NHL or get drafted or, um, even if you make it to school or make it to midget AAA, you get to meet, new friends and,
Yeah.
learn new things about yourself and, have memories. And, that's what it's all about. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, that's awesome. Appreciate you taking the time here, buddy. It's great catching up with you. And I think what I want to do maybe in a couple weeks is get yourself and my buddy that plays in Budapest, get you guys both on and just talk more about the hockey experience in Europe. So I think it's something that guys here, young guys, don't think about a whole lot. Like they're just NHL. I want to go to the NHL, which is great, but
yeah,
carving a life and a career out in Europe is a phenomenal option. And I think the more guys could just kind of be aware about what it's like over there and that there are other options outside of North America that are available and that are great for you. So, uh,
yeah. Well,
yeah, hopefully we can do that maybe in a month or so here.
yeah, let me know.
Perfect. Okay, buddy, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, talk to you later.
Yep, bye.